Every person we observe has one moment they never speak of. This is one of those moments.
Welcome back to Displaced. I'm Mara Saleh, here with Dr. Henrik Voss. Henrik, today's case file is number 3, which you've titled, She Had Never Seen the Sea. Looking at the initial brief, this one feels fundamentally different from the others we've discussed. There's a tone here, almost joy.
It was, Mara. That is why this case remains a cornerstone of the research. It is a significant outlier. Most subjects react to displacement with a predictable and entirely understandable cascade of terror and cognitive dissonance. Adaeze did not.
Let's start at the beginning then. Tell me about her. Who was Adaeze before you brought her into the present?
She was 19 years old, living in a small Igbo village, deep inland, around 1650. Her world was circumscribed, defined by the forest edge, the sound of their own dialect, the rhythm of the seasons. Her sensory palate was finite. The smell of wood smoke, wet earth, the yams her family grew. She had never seen a body of water she could not see the other side of.
And yet the profile notes she was unusually curious. What did that mean in her context?
It means she was a collector of information beyond what was necessary for survival. A traveling merchant had passed through their region years before. He had taken an interest in her and taught her rudimentary mathematics and the basics of Arabic script. It was an informal education, but it had ignited something in her, a capacity for abstract thought. She was known for asking questions that others were not.
So you chose her specifically for that quality?
We chose her because her mind showed a predisposition for analysis over panic. We wanted to see what would happen if the subject's primary response was not emotional, but intellectual.
And so you dropped this analytical mind from 1650 Nigeria onto
Venice Beach, Los Angeles. A Sunday afternoon in mid-July, for 4 minutes. It was a complete sensory assault. The sound of skateboards on concrete, a sound for which she had no reference. The smell of sunscreen and fried food. Music with electronic rhythms. And thousands of people, dressed in almost nothing. A world of exposed skin.
That alone should have been terrifying. The sheer chaos of it.
It should have been, but her reaction was fascinating. We observed her engage in a form of cognitive triage. She did not look at the people for more than a moment. She could not process them, so she filtered them out. The buildings, the vehicles, all ignored. Her senses scanned this impossible landscape, searching for something she could begin to comprehend. And then she found it.
The ocean!
Exactly. The one element in the scene that was natural, primal. She turned away from the entire human spectacle of the 21st century and walked directly toward the Pacific. She stopped at the edge of the wet sand and just watched. All our senses, our entire focus, was on her, and she was focused entirely on the tide.
So what was happening in her mind at that point? The mind reader must have been getting something extraordinary.
It was a signal of profound purity. Usually we get a storm of fragmented images, prayers, memories, pure sensory static. From Adaeze, we received a near-silent stream. A mind cleared of all distraction, focused on a single, massive problem. And then the thought clarified. A cognitive loop, an 8-word sentence, repeating itself with the rhythm of the waves she was watching.
What was it?
It is alive, and it does not stop.
My God, that's not a thought of fear, that's a conclusion, a scientific observation.
Precisely. She was cataloging it, trying to fit this impossible new fact into her model of the world. For 2 full minutes, she just stood there, observing. The pattern of the foam, the sound. And then, a small wave broke the pattern, running further up the sand than the others. It washed over her bare feet.
Right.
The physical contact seemed to break the spell of pure observation. She startled, looked down at her feet, at the water swirling around her ankles. Then she lifted her head and looked out at the horizon, at the sheer, impossible scale of it all. And after a moment of stillness, she laughed.
She laughed. Surrounded by a world that should be a nightmare, she just laughed.
It was the sound of pure delight. The audio is one of our most precious data points. It is the sound of a mind expanding in real time. The joy of discovery completely overwhelming any fear of the unknown. And in the middle of that laugh, the 4 minutes were up. She was gone.
That's an incredible story, Henrik. But you call the episode one of joy followed by quiet devastation. Where's the devastation in a moment like that? What is the long shadow of a laugh?
The devastation was in the silence that followed. For years, we had nothing else. The trail went cold. Tracing the historical footprint of a non-notable teenage girl from a pre-literate society is a search for a ghost. We had this perfect, beautiful data point, and it existed in a vacuum. We felt a profound responsibility to know what that moment did to her.
So you kept looking. Why was it so important?
Because if her story simply ended there, if that memory was a private burden she could never share, then what we did was arguably cruel. We would have given her a glimpse of an impossible truth and left her alone with it. The ethical weight of that possibility was considerable. We searched through colonial records, trade manifests, missionary diaries. Nothing. For a decade, Adaeze was simply a 4-minute recording in our archive.
Until
Until a graduate student cross-referencing linguistic drift stumbled upon it, deep in the digital archives of a university in London, an anthropologist's field notes from the 1970s. He had been documenting the oral traditions of her specific ethnic group. And in a footnote to a story about a trickster god, he mentioned a family he stayed with. They had a peculiar saying, a piece of ancestral wisdom.
a saying from an ancestor.
Yes, an ancestor from 350 years earlier. The family attributed the saying to a young woman who, they said, had seen things. A woman who, late in her life, gathered her grandchildren and told them something that became the bedrock of their family's identity.
What was the saying, Henrik?
She said, "The world is wider than God told us, and I have proof."
Oh, that's the devastation. It's so quiet. She carried that proof, that memory of a beach, her whole life. It didn't break her, it defined her.
She turned an anomaly into a philosophy, an inexplicable trauma into a source of wisdom. She didn't have the language for what she saw, so she invented her own. That is the long shadow of her laugh.
But Henrik, did you give her a gift or a profound burden? She had proof of something no one else could ever understand. That sounds lonely.
I have considered this question for years. In most cases, the answer is ambiguous. Here, I believe the evidence points toward it being a gift. The story was not one of a madwoman, but of a wise one. She was not alienated by her knowledge. She was elevated by it. It gave her a status, a purpose, to remind her people that their world was not the only one.
Which brings us to the human truth you extracted from this case.
Yes. We subjected Adaeze to the ultimate cognitive challenge. We showed her a world beyond her wildest capacity to imagine. And the part of her that met that challenge was not her strength, or her faith, or her fear. It was her curiosity. It was the first thing to engage, and the last thing to let go. It proved to be the most resilient part of her. Curiosity is the most indestructible human quality. You cannot displace it. You cannot overwhelm it. It survives everything.